Welcome back to the deep dive. We are really glad you're here. Today, we're tackling a subject that, on the surface at least, feels very, brick and mortar, like literally brick and mortar. But as soon as you scratch that surface, it becomes a story about psychology, finance, and just the very specific anxiety of owning a home. We're talking about the roof over your head.
Right, and we mean that quite literally, obviously, but also metaphorically. Because the home is it's this fascinating dual-purpose asset. It's a paradox, really.
Yeah.
On one side of the ledger, it is almost certainly the largest financial instrument you will ever manage. I mean, it is an investment vehicle. It's equity. It's a literal line item on a balance sheet that you hope appreciates over time.
Right. It's the nest egg.
Exactly. But on the other side of the ledger, and this is really where the conflict comes in, it is the sanctuary. It's where you raise your children. It's where you have your arguments, your celebrations. It is where you feel safe from the outside world. It is entirely emotional. So you have this massive financial liability that is also concurrently your emotional core.
And that tension is usually just dormant, right?
Yeah.
Until something goes wrong, until there is a leak, or until a storm rolls through. And suddenly you have to invite strangers into the sanctuary to literally tear it apart and put it back together. And you are just terrified that they are going to mess up the investment part.
Or the safety part.
Exactly.
That is the ultimate moment of vulnerability. You are handing the keys to your castle to a crew of people you likely met, 5 minutes ago? Hoping they care about the structure as much as you do.
Right.
And statistically speaking, that is a massive gamble.
Which brings us to our source material for today's deep dive.
Yep.
We are looking at the 2026 About Us profile of Safeguard Construction Company. Now, I know what you're thinking, a construction company website. Really?
Yeah.
But stick with us, because when we started analyzing the text, the bios, the timeline, the very specific certifications these people have, we found a narrative that is actually quite rare. It's a story about the intersection of high-level insurance strategy, old-world craftsmanship, and just a really human story of mentorship.
It is an incredible case study in how a modern service business can and perhaps should operate. It completely moves beyond the stereotype of the guy with the truck.
Right, the guy with the ladder and a pickup.
Exactly. And it reveals a sophisticated operation that is custom-built to handle that exact tension between the home as asset and the home as sanctuary we were just talking about.
So their motto on the site is, a strong home starts with a strong team.
Which, let's be honest, usually sounds like corporate wallpaper.
Total fluff. You see
Yeah.
that on a motivational poster in a break room and you just ignore it.
Completely. But our mission today is to stress test that motto. We are going to look at the specific biographies of the people running this show: Kevin, Sasa, Marina, Igor, Obed. And we're going to see if the evidence actually supports the claim. And spoiler alert, particularly when we get to the relationship between the owner, Kevin, and a key team member named Igor, there is a depth of connection here that you just do not see in the modern gig economy.
Yeah, that relationship is going to be the absolute core of this deep dive. We're going to get into a really specific, almost serendipitous story involving a move to Aurora, a Nextdoor post, and the evolution of a career. But first, let's lay the groundwork. Who are we actually looking at? This is Safeguard Construction. They've been around since 2006. They operate in Illinois and Wisconsin.
And they cover the full exterior envelope: roofing, siding, windows, solar. But what is frankly less interesting to me than the who. Because when you look at the tenure of the staff, and remember, we are looking at their 2026 public profile here, you see retention numbers that are absolute anomalies in the construction industry.
Meaning people actually stay.
People stay for decades. And that tells us something is happening culturally under the hood that really works.
So let's unpack this. I want to start right at the top of the org chart with the founder, Kevin Schultz. We're calling this segment The Scholar Tradesman.
It's a very fitting title.
So Kevin's bio starts with what looks like a fairly traditional blue-collar origin story. He was raised in Wheaton, Illinois, and the text is very specific about his younger years. It says during high school and college, he wasn't just, studying the industry. He was doing the actual work. Roofing, siding, windows, he was out there.
And that distinction is vital.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference between a construction business owner who, say, bought a franchise and just manages spreadsheets all day, and an owner who knows what a bundle of shingles feels like on a 90-degree day in August.
He has the muscle memory.
He has the tactile empathy. He knows the physical toll it takes. He knows what it takes to flash a chimney correctly because he has likely done it himself 100 times. That builds a level of respect with the crews that you simply cannot buy. When he walks onto a job site, he isn't a suit. He's a veteran of the trade.
But then the path diverges in this really interesting way. He goes to college, and this is where I stopped and reread the source material. He didn't get a degree in civil engineering. He didn't get a degree in construction management. He earned a degree in business and mass communication.
This is genuinely my favorite detail in the entire profile.
Why? I mean, it seems almost completely irrelevant to fixing roofs.
It seems that way, sure. But think about the biggest friction point in the construction industry. It isn't the hammer hitting the nail. It is the information gap.
Okay, say more about that.
It is the homeowner not understanding why the project is delayed. It is the confusion over the complicated invoice. It is the sheer inability to translate technical problems into plain English so the person paying the bill actually understands what's happening.
Right, it's the black box problem. You put money in and eventually a roof comes out, but you have no idea what happened in the middle.
Exactly. Construction is highly technical. Insurance is highly legalistic. The homeowner usually speaks neither of those languages. By having a degree in mass communication, Kevin is signaling, whether he explicitly knows it or not, that he views the narrative of the project as being just as important as the physical execution of the project.
He's a translator.
He is a bridge. The text actually says he ventured into the corporate world and thrived in the insurance claim industry before launching Safeguard. So just look at the stack of skills he has. He speaks trade. He knows how to physically build. He speaks corporate insurance. He knows how the money moves. And because of that mass comm degree, he speaks human.
That is a trifecta you very rarely find. Usually you get a guy who is amazing with his hands but can't write a coherent email, or you get a guy who writes great emails but doesn't know which end of the hammer to hold.
Precisely. And that communication piece becomes the foundation for everything else we are going to discuss today. It allows him to mentor his team effectively, which we will see with IGOR in a bit. It allows him to advocate for the homeowner. It is the secret weapon of the whole company.
Well, let's talk about the alphabet soup behind his name, though. Because while the soft skills are great, the hard skills are what actually keep the water out of your living room. The text lists a lot of certifications. OSHA, VSI, HAG Engineering.
Yeah, and we should not gloss over these. In a largely unregulated market, and honestly, exterior construction can be the Wild West. Certifications are the only objective proof of competence you have before the work actually starts.
So let's break them down for the listener. OSHA is safety, obviously.
Critical.
Yeah.
It protects the homeowner from massive liability. If a worker falls off your roof and the company isn't strictly following OSHA standards, that can instantly become your legal nightmare. Kevin being OSHA certified means he is actively managing risk on your property.
Makes sense. And VSI, that's the Vinyl Siding Institute.
This one sounds mundane, I know, but it is scientifically incredibly important. Vinyl siding is a floating system. It expands and contracts with the outside temperature.
Okay.
If you nail it too tight, which amateurs do all the time because they think tight equals strong, the siding will literally buckle and warp the very first time the temperature swings. Being VSI certified means Kevin and his team understand the thermal engineering required to make the siding last 20 years instead of 2.
Wow. Okay. And then there's Hague Engineering Certified, HAAG. This one feels different. The text highlights it really prominently.
It is the absolute gold standard. Hague Engineering is essentially the forensic science division of the roofing world. To be Hague certified, you have to undergo rigorous training on the actual physics of storm damage.
The physics of damage, that sounds intense.
Yes. You need to be able to look at a mark on a shingle and determine, was this caused by a hailstone? And if so, what direction did it come from? How large was it? Or, on the flip side, was it caused by a blister from attic heat? Or was it mechanical damage, meaning someone just scuffed it with a work boot?
So it literally is CSI for roofs.
It is truth detection.
Yeah.
And why does this matter to you, the listener? Because when Kevin or his team argues a claim with an insurance company, they aren't just saying, hey, this looks broken, can we get some money? They are saying, the fracture pattern on the fiberglass matting of this specific shingle is consistent with hail impact. It brings a level of scientific authority to the table that an insurance adjuster simply cannot easily dismiss.
Which perfectly leads us to the biggest credential of all. The text says Kevin is a licensed public adjuster in both Illinois and Wisconsin. Now, I suspect a lot of people think a general contractor and an adjuster are basically the same thing.
They are absolutely not. In fact, there's a strict legal firewall between them in most jurisdictions.
Break that down for us because that seems important.
A contractor repairs the physical damage. They can quote a price for the work. But legally, in many states, a contractor cannot interpret your insurance policy for you. They cannot negotiate the settlement on your behalf. That is considered the unauthorized practice of public adjusting.
Oh, so if a normal contractor says to you, don't worry, I'll get your insurance to pay for this, they might actually be crossing a legal line.
They are walking a very, very thin line. But Kevin holds the license. A public adjuster is licensed by the state to represent the policyholder, you, the homeowner. They are the only ones, other than a practicing attorney, who can legally negotiate the claim settlement with the insurance carrier.
So by explicitly holding this license, Kevin is signaling that Safeguard is really a hybrid entity. They are part construction company, part legal advocacy firm.
And that is the absolute key to their mission. They aren't just there to patch a hole in the roof. They are there to ensure the homeowner gets the full financial benefit of the policy they have been paying premiums on for years.
And that advocacy philosophy, it isn't just a Kevin thing, it filters down.
Mhm.
This brings us to the strong team part of the motto. When I look at the tenure of the staff, it's honestly staggering.
It's the since 2006 factor.
Right. We are reading this in 2026. We have Sasa Gajic and Marina Schultz, both of whom have been with the company since the very beginning.
That is a 20-year tenure. In construction, turnover is usually massive. I mean, people bounce from crew to crew constantly. To keep your core leadership team together for 2 decades implies a level of loyalty and shared purpose that is incredibly rare.
Let's look at the shared roots here. The bio says Sasa Gajic was born in the former Yugoslavia and immigrated to the U.S. in 2001. Marina Schultz, also originally from the former Yugoslavia, also came to the U.S. in 2001.
Right. And the company was founded in 2006. So you have this really compelling narrative of immigration, of arriving in a completely new country, and within 5 years coming together to build an enterprise from the ground up. That shared background, the language, the cultural understanding, the shared experience of restarting a life in America, it creates a bond that is much, much stronger than just a paycheck.
It's a tribe.
It is. The text describes Sasa as the cornerstone.
Yeah.
He manages all the critical logistics, sales, vendor relationships, job scheduling. He's the engine room, and Marina is the front of house, handling the clients with her retail and real estate background. But that shared history means they trust each other implicitly.
And that trust seems to be magnetic. It attracts others. And this is where we get to the story that really defines this entire deep dive for me. The story of Igor Grujicic.
The advocate.
Exactly. So Igor fits the demographic profile we've seen so far with Sasa and Marina, born in the former Yugoslavia in 1983. But he came to the U.S. a bit later, in 2010.
Right. But the really fascinating part of this story, and the thing we really want to dig into today, is how he actually ended up at Safeguard. Because it wasn't a corporate headhunter. It wasn't a job board like Indeed or LinkedIn.
It was next door.
Next door. The neighborhood app where people usually just complain about loud music or, post pictures of lost cats.
So set the scene for us. The text tells us it's 2019. Igor moves to Aurora, Illinois.
Right. He's new to the neighborhood. He's looking to connect, maybe find some footing in a new community. And he makes a post on Nextdoor. Now, we don't have the exact text of the post in the source material, but it tells us that Sasa and Marina, who live in that same community, spotted it.
They saw the name, they saw the background.
They recognized one of us. And I don't just mean superficially from the same country. They recognized a shared work ethic, a shared journey. They reached out.
It's pure serendipity. If he hadn't posted, or if they just hadn't opened the app and scrolled at that exact moment, this partnership might never have happened.
It's the very definition of community. And this is where the story pivots from just hiring an employee to truly building a legacy. Igor joins the team. Now, he has background in the industry. The text notes he's been in roofing since 2017. But Kevin sees something more in him.
Kevin sees the potential for another scholar tradesman.
Exactly. Kevin, the master of mass communication and the licensed public adjuster, takes Igor under his wing. The source material outlines a mentorship that completely transforms Igor's career. Kevin doesn't just teach him how to sell a roof. He teaches him the dark arts of insurance adjusting.
He teaches him how to fight.
He teaches him how to advocate. Because there is a very specific, high-level skill set required to be a public adjuster. You have to be able to read a dense 50-page insurance policy and find the loophole. You have to be able to stand on a steep roof with a hostile insurance adjuster and firmly, politely, but factually prove them wrong.
And that's where Kevin's communication background transfers directly to Igor.
Yes. And the result is that in 2021, after this period of intense mentorship, Igor earns his own public adjuster license. So now Safeguard isn't just Kevin the expert and a bunch of helpers. It is a dual threat. You have the owner and this key protege, both licensed, both aggressively fighting for the homeowner.
The text mentions they have handled hundreds of successful insurance claims together. Hundreds.
That is a massive, massive impact. Just think about what that actually means in human terms. That is, hundreds of families who might have been significantly underpaid, who might have had their claims denied entirely, who might have been left with a leaking roof and a depleted savings account. But because Sasa saw a random post on Nextdoor in 2019, and because Kevin invested heavily in mentorship, and because Igor put in the grueling work to get licensed, those families got a fair outcome.
It really creates a picture of a team that is grown, not just assembled.
Grown is the perfect word for it. It's entirely organic.
And Igor's bio adds another layer that I think is really relevant. He's described as a proud father of 2 daughters, ages 8 and 6.
Which loops right back to the home as sanctuary theme we opened with.
Mhm.
When Igor is fighting for a client against an insurance company, he knows exactly what is at stake. He knows the anxiety of wanting your kids to be safe and warm and secure. That personal understanding inherently makes him a better advocate. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet to him.
So we have the leadership in Kevin, the cornerstone in Sasa and Marina, and the advocate in Igor. But a construction company obviously needs boots on the ground to actually execute the work. Let's talk about the service ecosystem.
Because this is where the rubber meets the road, or I guess the shingle meets the roof. You can have the absolute best legal and insurance strategy in the world, but if the window is installed crooked, you have failed the homeowner.
Enter Obed Perez, general manager of the window and door division.
Obed is the veteran, nearly 20 years in the industry. And his path is a classic meritocracy. The text says he went from sales associate to team lead to senior sales consultant and finally to general manager.
He climbed every single rung of the ladder.
He did. And that gives him immense credibility with the crews out in the field. He isn't asking them to do anything he hasn't done himself for years. But the key differentiator for Obed, and this is highlighted right at the top of the website header, is se habla español.
He is fluent in Spanish.
And we have to be realistic about the construction landscape in the United States today. A huge portion of the skilled labor force speaks Spanish as their primary language. Having a general manager who is culturally and linguistically fluent bridges the massive gap between the office strategy and the field execution.
It completely prevents those lost in translation errors.
Precisely. Think about it. Seal this joint, not that one. If that one instruction is misunderstood by a crew member, you have a leak inside the walls that might not be found for years. Obed ensures it is implicitly understood. But it also works the other way, right? It allows Safeguard to comprehensively serve Spanish-speaking homeowners.
It's an inclusivity thing.
It's an access thing. Navigating a complex insurance claim is hard enough in your native language. Imagine trying to do it in a second language while your house is damaged. Obed allows those homeowners to have an advocate who speaks their tongue. It builds trust instantly.
His quote in his bio is beautiful too. It says, "It's never been about the sale. It's always been about earning the trust."
Which aligns perfectly with the long game mentality of the whole company. Kevin and Sasa have been there for 20 years. They aren't interested in a quick buck that ruins their reputation in the community. Obed fits that culture perfectly.
Then we have the dynamic duo of the support staff, Pam Jones and David Blazak.
This is a great example of the office versus field balance. Pam Jones is listed as the claims specialist, and her bio specifically emphasizes long-term relationships from the claim process all the way to completion.
She's the continuity.
Because insurance claims are incredibly slow. They can take months back and forth. You need someone in the office who remembers your name, who knows the exact status of your file, who doesn't just treat you like a random ticket number in a queue. That is Pam. She manages the emotional endurance of the project for the homeowner.
And David.
David Blazak is described as seasoned in the field. He builds instant rapport. He's the problem solver. He's the guy who physically shows up in your driveway when there is a crisis or a question.
So Pam keeps you calm on the phone, and David keeps you calm in person.
Exactly. It's a pincer movement of customer service. They surround the problem.
And finally, we absolutely cannot forget Sherry DeMarco, invoicing and receivables manager.
The most important person in the room when the job is actually done.
Her bio says her #1 priority is the maximization of every insurance claim.
That specific phrase, maximization, is critical.
Yeah.
It ties directly back to Kevin and Igor. The public adjusters, Kevin and Igor, they create the potential for the claim. They argue for the scope of work. But Sherry ensures that potential is realized. She ensures the insurance company actually writes the check and the funds are dispersed correctly.
She's the closer.
She's the financial closer. Without her, all that incredible advocacy is just talk. She turns the advocacy into actual dollars for the homeowner's repair.
So when you step back and look at this team tab as a whole, it really isn't just a list of random hires. It is a finely tuned machine.
It is a purpose-built ecosystem. You have Kevin, who is the legal and strategic authority, Sasa and Marina, who are the operational backbone and the cultural glue, Igor, the technical advocate and the protege, Obed, the master craftsman and translator, Pam and David acting as the customer experience shield, and Sherry as the financial capture engine.
Every single base is covered. It's almost like a heist movie team, but for fixing houses.
Yeah. And that perfectly explains why they can operate successfully in two different states.
Right, let's talk about that real quick. Section 5, the geographic reach. They have offices in Aurora, Illinois, and Cottage Grove, Wisconsin.
That is not a small feat in this industry. Illinois and Wisconsin have completely different building codes, different licensing requirements, different state insurance laws.
And the text notes Kevin is licensed in both.
Which shows a really high level of administrative competence. But practically speaking, you simply cannot run a business across state lines unless you have a team you trust with your life. Kevin can't physically be in Aurora and Cottage Grove at the same time. He has to rely on Sasa to manage the schedule flawlessly. He has to rely on Obed to manage the crews. If the team was weak or fractured, that expansion would fail spectacularly. The fact that they're thriving in two states is the absolute proof that the team is strong.
Let's pivot to the corporate philosophy to wrap this up, the why. They list a few core values: built for the future, people first, always, and united for you.
Built for the future really stood out to me. The text talks about using durable, energy-efficient materials.
This is their take on sustainability, right?
Yeah, and I like it because it's highly pragmatic. True sustainability in construction isn't just about using, greenwashed bamboo flooring. It's about building a roof that doesn't end up in a landfill in 10 years because it failed prematurely.
It's longevity.
It's durability. By using high-quality materials and installing them correctly, remember those VSI certifications we talked about? They are actively reducing waste. They're ensuring the investment part of the home is protected for the long haul.
And the people first value? Treating the client's home like their own?
Which rings incredibly true when you look back at the bios. These are people who have built their own lives, often completely from scratch as immigrants, in this very community. They implicitly understand the deep value of a home because they have worked so hard to establish their own. When Igor walks into a client's home, he isn't seeing just another job site. He's seeing a family just like his own.
So we've done the deep dive. We've looked at the history, the credentials, the incredibly serendipitous Nextdoor post, and the mentorship that followed. What is the synthesis here? What does this all actually mean for you, the listener?
I think the big takeaway is that Safeguard Construction is a highly specialized entity. They have positioned themselves as a comprehensive solution to the sheer complexity of modern homeownership. They aren't just a construction crew patching leaks.
They are a hybrid.
They are part law firm with the public adjusting, part logistics company with Sasa and Marina's operations, and part master craftsman with Kevin and Obed.
And that specific combination is their superpower.
It is. They have identified that the modern homeowner doesn't just need a repair. They need a guide. They need someone to hold their hand through the endless bureaucracy of insurance, the dense technicality of construction, and just the overall stress of the process.
So what here is pretty clear for anyone looking to hire a pro.
Absolutely. The next time you are looking for a contractor, do not just look at the shiny photo gallery on their homepage. Anyone can take a nice picture of a freshly installed window. You need to look at the About Us page. Look at the team.
What are the green flags people should be looking for?
Well, green flag number one is longevity. Has the leadership team been there for a year or 20 years? That tells you volumes about stability. Green flag number two is certifications. Do they have third-party scientific proof of their skills like Hay or VSI? Or are they just claiming to be experts? And green flag number three is diversity of skill. Do they have people who understand the money and the law like a public adjuster, not just the hammer and the nail?
Because if they're just a loose collection of gig workers, your project is incredibly fragile.
But if they are a cohesive unit, a strong team like we see here, they can weather the literal and figurative storms.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over. It goes all the way back to the very beginning of our conversation.
The mass comm degree.
The mass comm degree. It's really sticking with me. We so often think of blue-collar work and white-collar work as these totally separate, siloed worlds, but Kevin and his team prove that the real magic happens when you intentionally combine them.
You're totally right.
The ability to clearly explain the problem to a homeowner is just as valuable as the physical ability to fix the problem.
That is the ultimate unspoken truth of the service industry. If you fix my roof, but you leave me confused, out of the loop, and anxious for 3 months, you haven't really helped me. But if you fix my roof and explain the why and the how in a way that makes me feel smart and secure, that is how you build deep trust.
And that trust is what keeps a team together for 20 years. They aren't just building houses, they are building understanding.
Communication is the actual foundation. Everything else just sits on top of it.
A strong home starts with a strong team. I think we can say, conclusively, that in the case of Safeguard Construction, that is not just corporate fluff. It's a biography.
It's proven fact.
Listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you see a construction sign planted in a neighbor's yard, remember the story behind it. Remember the next door posts, the dense certifications, and the human connections that make it all happen.
Always look deeper.
We'll see you on the next deep dive. Take care.